So anyway, we are at day 10 now. Sometimes horse trainers' horses, you know, you get busy doing stuff and you own the horse yourself. But we've handled this horse every day, and today we're going to saddle him here in the cross tie. He's already got his polos on. He's been a pretty good citizen. That's actually a pretty good horse. And so we're going to saddle him today. I'm going to ground drive a little bit. I'll show you how I get started on a horse that's never been ground driven before and how you get yourself going with that and not making mistakes or getting yourself in a wreck. You know, sometimes they get spun all around and fall down or get wrapped up in those lunge lines or those ground driving lines. So we're going to ground drive him today, and you can see how I get started on that. And then, you know what, we might put him on the hot walker. I mean, that's something that I start to teach these guys real early on, that they can go out there and just walk and they don't have to think about too much. So for today, we're going to saddle him. We're going to see how he ground drives, and hopefully you guys learned something. All right, so I'm going to grab one of these saddle pads. I want to thank Thin Line always for their sponsorship. I really appreciate the Ranch Contour pads. I can tell you that we run the wheels off these things. I mean, they work as hard as any saddle pad that I've ever had. They work all day, every day, and they've been very low maintenance. So we're going to throw saddle on this horse. I'm always a little bit careful. I'll saddle them from both sides, you know, so they get used to it. I don't worry too much about one side or the other. You always got to get a feel for that horse as you're going to throw something on. You know, he's a little bit twitchy today, but you know, you don't want to go and throw a saddle at this horse with no feeling. You know, you always want to make sure that you kind of have a good thumb on the pulse of your horse when you're tacking him up. Otherwise, they get into wrecks pretty easy. You know, it doesn't take long on a smart youngster like this to scare him. You know, if he jumps out of the cross tie and spins around and loses the saddle, you know, you might spend 10 days trying to get him to stand good in the cross tie again. So, you know, like that. You got to move like you're going to move, but you got to be careful that you don't spook him and not be paying attention. So, I'm always going to be a little careful here. On these youngsters, I tend to put the cinch down on the offside latigo further than normal so that it gives me a little bit of extra room here to get started. I don't want to be reaching way under there and have that thing get tight too soon. So it's actually just a little trick. Well, lots of times on these babies, we'll let it down on the other side further probably than it needs to be so that it can come up on this side a little higher, and I can get a good wrap and I can make sure that I've got a handle on it before I cinch it up too tight. Now, it's not real tight. We're going to make sure before we walk out of here that it's tight enough to keep the saddle on, but you really want to just have a feel for that as you're putting that on. So at this point, he feels pretty good. You know, his muscles feel soft. He's got a good expression to him. He's not really that scared. He's actually a pretty good little colt. All right. So at this point, I'm going to take him out, and I'm actually just going to tie him in the arena along the side here. And I'll show you why in a second. So we're just going to tie him up here for a second. You know, we're going to give him enough rope that he can move a little bit, because what we're going to do next is we're going to grab a snaffle. Now, I start them all, when I start riding them, I start them all in the Bozell, but this is the point where I'll put a snaffle in and I'll get them used to it so they kind of can pack that around and feel it a little bit. I think it's a good place to start. So we're going to grab my smooth snaffle and 2 lunge lines. I like to have both the same kind of lunge line. I hate to ground drive a horse with 2 different lunge lines. It drives me crazy. You can do it, but it's not my favorite thing. So for now, I'm going to spook the crap out of him by reaching up there. There we go. For now, I'm going to hang these here. You'll make it. There you go. See, so I'll show you why he's tied up in a second. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to put this snaffle in while he's tied up here. And we're just real quiet. There, dude. This might be a little too big. He's got kind of a tiny little head. There we go. Loop these reins here for a second. Now sometimes you got to actually tie a knot in that head stall to make sure, but we got another hole on this side, so we'll start there. We're just going to make sure that this thing fits good enough. I mean, obviously, this is the first time he's had a snaffle in. It's day 10. We'll just let him pack that around. And then I'm going to take these off, and I'm going to loop these through the pommel and back over the saddle horn like this so they don't come loose. You see? Now, once I've done that, I'm going to feed my lunge line through my stirrup, and we're going to hang it back on the saddle horn so it's out of the way. And then we're going to run it up here, and we're going to run it through the snaffle like this to the side of that halter, you see? So I can start to pull on him, gives him a little bit of pressure on that snaffle rein, and do the same thing on the other side. So this is the reason that I have him tied to the wall still to ground drive, because this is that moment of truth where you flip this over and it gets underneath there. And this is where everybody gets spooked, because this is where your horse runs off and spins around and doesn't know what you're doing. So, you know, I kind of have the ability now to just kind of walk around a little bit, make sure that he can pay attention. He can't go too far when I flap the reins, you know, because he's kind of tied there. So I'm just going to make sure he can do this a little bit before I turn him loose. And I'll let them get to this point right here, and I'll start to just draw. I'm going to draw on that left rein, you see. I'm just going to take his nose there a little bit. When he moves his feet, I release him, you see, and I can start to already draw on him a little bit like this. See, and he can figure it out, but he can't get too far. He's not going to run off on me and drag me around or get himself scared or get in a wreck. You see that? So I'm going to keep going over here. I'm going to draw again until he breaks that hip loose. You see, he's backed up. He's sucked back. When he's going to lean against it. He's going to lean against it. When he breaks his hip loose, he's still leaned against there. You see that? You just got to take that little step away from that back end, and he's just got a little confused. He's not sure where to go. There, see that again. And that's all I want to be able to do at this point, because when I get in the saddle and draw on his face, I'd sure like to be able to get that hip loose a little bit from the start. So same thing here. I'm going to draw on the right side now till he can move his hip. You see, he's not, he's stuck. I'm going to keep drawing. Nope, still stuck. There. Now, he stepped back against it, so I'm going to ask him again. You see how he wants to suck back into that? We're just going to play with him. He might get frustrated. There we go. See, now he's learned a little bit already, and I'm not pulling on his face. You see that? I can mess around with that snaffle ring a little bit, but that's hanging there, and I'm really just drawing on either side of his face with his halter. It just goes through there. You see the difference? See how he stepped away from that real nice? I'm going to pull on this side again. Stepped away from there real soft, just that soft. Now, I'm going to turn him back the other way, and he's really soft in my fingers already. He's not really worried about that around behind. So now I can come up here and I can unclip him from the wall, and we can let him go a little bit. You see, and it might take him a time or two to realize he's not tied. There we go. You see? Now I have a little handle on him, and I can drive him around a little bit. You see? So this is his first time ground driving. We're going to draw there, try to break him loose. There you go. Again, you got to watch they don't spin around on you. You want to make sure that you keep pretty close to their face, one side or the other, because they'll spin around, and you get them spun around like that, you get all wrapped up in it. You know, so just really soft. If they do decide they want to go, you put that rein in this hand, and you kind of keep a little bit of bend to them, and you let them kind of lunge around you until they figure out that shape, you know, you see that? So you don't want to let him get off on you too much, but it's okay if he does. You're just going to be patient, let him find it. When he softens up a little bit, soften my hand, you see? I might, if he cruises along like this, I might start getting him along the wall. I might even turn him into the wall a couple times, you know, and just try to get a little handle on him there. Get him rolled back. If he can move his feet and figure that out, I'll let him go. You know, we'll jog him around to the right a little bit. There we go. Again, I'm just keeping that inside rein, just like that. And remember, we're not pulling on the snaffle. I've actually got it hooked to the halter ring, so I'm just kind of drawing on his face. And if you drive him up and let him relax a little bit, he'll actually start to get kind of soft. You see that? He gets soft in the bridle already. No. We're gonna run over the camera guy. I want to run over the camera guy. Watch Lucas leap. Sounds like a new Bob book. There you go. You're also testing, when you do this, you're also testing how well you can work with them in that blind spot. So, you know, kind of the point is to get a little bit out of their eyesight and get them used to you being back here. You see him look over his shoulder a little bit. But if they get used to you being around behind them there, it's not going to be quite as big a deal when you sit in the saddle and they suddenly see you behind them. So, and then when I'm done driving them, I try to always drive them back. Try to put them right back over here. So let's see if we can do that. There we go. At this point, I'm just going to take those lunge lines back off. You know, and I'll do that wrapping and stuff here like this around these colts just to get them used to that motion. You know, I'm going to put it back on the saddle horn, you know, a little bit stronger this time than I did the first time. You know, you're just always managing the stimuli. I think that's a big thing. You know, I'm not out here trying to chase that horse around and get it used to everything. You can't ever get them used to everything. You just have to get them used to how to handle the pressure you put on them. And if they know where to go and what to do with the pressures that we're putting on them, then they can handle any situation where they run into pressure. So, you know, just tossing that up there, messing around with that is part of getting him, you know, just used to that kind of stuff. So I'm not too careful, but I'm always kind of feely, you know. You always have to just kind of feel that horse out for, you know, where he's at today. So I think it's important to keep things short. I think these 2-year-olds learn really quickly and really easily as long as we don't overwhelm them. So actually what I'm going to do with him now, because exercise and fitness and all of those things are very important to a horse being healthy and sound, we're actually going to put him on the hot walker. So already at this point, he learns to go out there on the hot walker and he gets the opportunity to go and walk and get the exercise without me putting pressure on him. You see, I can work him longer in here and he'll get more exercise and we'll get him sweating and he'll work through things, but I don't want to put that much pressure on his brain. I'd like him to just go out and start to get physically stronger, physically fitter. And so to me, that's an important thing. And these youngsters already, before or after, sometimes both, will go on the hot walker here, you know, maybe a half an hour of just walking quietly. They can just put their head down and go walk. So that's the first time we've ground driven this horse. We're going to go put him out on the hot walker here a little bit so he can have some downtime. For this colt, I'm going to turn him loose in the hot walker because he's pretty good. He's managed to get himself around pretty decent. We kind of have these clips here for the sheer fact that some of them aren't. Some of them don't manage to really handle it. But he's a pretty good colt already, and he's pretty used to this. And this just gives him the ability to have some unstructured time where he can go walk and get a little fitter, and we don't have to pull on him or poke on him. Cool. So that's day 10. You can see how far he's gotten since day 1. We haven't shot anything in the last 10 days, so that's really genuinely from our first video to this video. It's 10 days since he's been here in the yard. I'm very happy with his progress, and we're going to come back on day 12. We've already planned this so that you guys can see, because I think by day 12 here, we're going to get on him a little bit and maybe sit on him. You know how that goes with colts. You never know for sure, but my plan right now and the way that he feels right now is that day 12 is going to be putting the Bosel in, kind of steering him around a little bit, and I might be able to swing a leg over him. So I want you guys to come back for the next one and enjoy this one while you're watching it.